Hey guys, this video is going to be for pattern number 11. This one's kind of an interesting one, and I think rather than trying to do sort of that six-sided floral pattern that we've kind of done before, it's almost similar to pattern 7 if you checked out that video. But really at the root of this guy, it's a little easier to do than 7 because at least here you can identify these little triangular shapes, and if you just look at each one of those guys, they're basically the same thing. So like horizontally, for example, there's a triangle that has 3 little kind of petals inside of it. The one next to it is the same thing, it's just flipped vertically. So they kind of like just flip 180 degrees back and forth to create the row. And every single row is doing the same thing. So we're going to try to build one triangle, and then through a series of maybe the tile generator, I think we can probably get this whole guy to work. So I'm going to go in here to my new graph, and we're going to start off by making a polygon just to create the triangle. So we're going to put this to a 3-sided shape. Let's come down here and rotate it 90 degrees just so it's pointing up. And I'm going to take this and transform it just so I can kind of center it again, because I don't really want that getting too close to the edge. And after that, we're going to do an edge detect, bring down the roundness so it's kind of nice and sharp. Let's put the width up a little bit more to like a 4, maybe a 5, somewhere around there, and invert it because I want to make sure this is a white border around it. Now after that, we're going to kind of work on this guy. Now this is kind of a weird one. It's not really the waveform, which I've used a bunch in some of these other videos. I think this kind of looks like a disc. Let me try mirroring this to get that one working. So I'm going to do a shape. Let's put this down here in a different section of the graph. We're going to do a disc. Now I'm going to scale it down to maybe 0.5. I might have to play around with this one a little bit. Let's do a transform. I want to see what happens if I mirror this guy horizontally. Let me see here. So if I go, so I'm mirroring it across. It's set to a horizontal mirror, which is X. If I move it though, oh, this is actually going to work. So I'm kind of shifting it over because it's mirroring it in the middle. You can kind of see how it's cutting it off halfway. And I want to get it probably about like that. Yeah, that looks pretty close. Actually, it wasn't that difficult. Now after that, it's because it is very small. Let's just go to this guy, transform it, and we're going to boost this one up a little bit. I'm just giving Designer more information so it can kind of use more pixel data to build some of these shapes. Okay, let's kind of shift this guy back. This is now going to go into the circular splatter. Okay, make sure it goes into the pattern input, not the background, and then change the pattern to image input. And we only need 3 of these guys. And really at this point, it's just a matter of me getting the scale and the radius right. So let's bring those in just a bit more. See if I can make these guys a bit larger as well. Okay, radius is going to go up. Let's just double check it. Okay, that has a white border, dark gray in the middle, but I think we do have that looking pretty good. Now it's not rotated right, because remember, like this has to kind of fit within that triangle. So the 3 points of that are going to kind of line up in here. So I do have a rotation issue. We probably can figure that out pretty easily though. So rotation, I think it's 90 degrees. Let me try that. Oh, not that guy. I actually need to rotate the entire pattern. So that's down here. Yeah, that isn't going to be 90. So wrong rotation. The other one, what it was doing was rotating the individual shape. Down here on ring rotation, this rotates the entire result of the splatter. So that should fit inside of there. Now there's 2 things to this, because we have the shape itself, but there's also that edge detect, and the shape is kind of a darker gray. So a couple things are going to happen here. One, I need the edge detect, so let's knock that out. So this needs to go into here, and we're going to invert it, no roundness. I'm going to leave the thickness kind of the way it is right now because I don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. But I also need to do another levels on just this guy because I need to make that darker gray color. So we're going to move the gain down to about 0.5. Now, these two can blend together to give me the final result. So we're going to take a blend, put both of these into the blends inputs, and change it to max. And you can see that looks about like what we need here. It's a little weird because you can see if you look at the curvature, see how it kind of like doesn't really continue properly. That's something with the splatter circular. It's probably my radius is just a little off. Let me kind of bring that in. This one might be a little tricky here. All right, what's going on? Okay, no roundness. I think, honestly, if that's kind of scaled down, that probably is going to pass and be totally fine. There are going to be some ways to fix it if I do edge to text individually on each piece, but that's a lot of work. We're not even going to worry about that. All right, let's kind of put these two together. So I got a blend. I want to put this little guy with the triangle. So this is going to mix with that one. Foreground background order is probably not going to matter because we're just doing addition or max, which is very similar to that. Okay, position's not looking too good, so I got to fix that. So down here, let's do a transform and move this over just a bit more. And I'm going to look at this guy. So double clicking on that, single clicking on that, just so I can move it down, and then I'm going to scale it up until it looks like it hits the right spot. So Command Shift, grab from a corner, and let's move that down just a tiny bit. Oh, accidentally shifted it to the side. Let's try that again. My shift key is not holding up too well. There we go. Yeah, that's a little touchy sometimes if you kind of move too much with your mouse. Even though you are holding shift, it'll still break the kind of linear movement in one axis, and it'll still kind of hop to the side. All right, let's double check that. That looks pretty good. I think we've got it. Good. All right, let's try to tile this guy. This might take a little experimenting here. So I'm going to put this in a generator. We're going to connect that, and let's see what happens here. So if I put this in and we do image input, you'll notice they're all facing the same direction. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I could just line them up like this and then use another one to fill in the gap, or I could try flipping each other row and having a triangle point downward to kind of make a diamond. So what I'm kind of talking about is I could do this diamond shape and repeat it, or I could just kind of leave it the way it is. Oh, actually I can't do that because if I have these facing upward and they're on top of each other, you'll notice how they don't do that in the reference. So they all have to come in to, all their points have to connect. I can't have that point colliding with this guy. So we have an interesting little issue here. How do I rotate some of these pieces? Let's see what we have down here. Now I do have like rotation on everything. I have random rotation. That isn't very helpful. Okay, so symmetry, that sort of does it randomly. There's random, I don't want random anything because that's going to break it. Down here I have, again, just overall rotation. That's not very helpful. Now what I could do is up here on this might be a cool idea to maybe try doing a second pattern. So you could, we haven't done this on any of them, the other videos yet, but if I put this to 2 pattern inputs right here, let's do pattern distribution by pattern number. Okay, now we've lost a lot of them, but let's not worry about that. The reason I'm doing this is because if I were to have a flipped version of this, if I had another one that was just simply turned 180 degrees, so I have this one pointing up, this guy pointing down, and we're going to try to blend these together. Let's put this as the second input on the tile generator. Oh, look what's happening. Yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to see before. I think right now what I got to do, because I'm pretty confident we've got this figured out, I just need to work on the spacing, is let me immediately get these tile settings set up and look at the reference. Okay, so I'm doing triangles across, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so it's 8 across. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think it's 8 by 10. We're going to find out. So 8, I bet this is right. Yeah. So I have it set to 8 by 10, and you notice there's a gap. We can fix this, though, just by going down here and boosting up the scale a little bit, just so they barely touch. And then what I'm going to do is, let's do interstice Y. Oh, we have to go negative. So negative value, pull that back right about here. Now, it's not perfect, but I think what I can do here, that's going to move the whole thing. That's going to squash them. Okay, I need to actually offset these two guys. So it's probably going to work if I just transform these two individually. Let's try to move this one by itself. So I'm going to just take a transform on this one shape. So I'm kind of almost affecting one of the rows. But if I transform it, yeah, there we go. Almost got it. Right about there. That looks pretty good. I'm looking at the line too. That feels pretty good. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe a couple pixels off right there, but from a distance, that looks great. Now what I'm just missing is the same thing filling in that section. So this is going to be pretty easy. What I'm going to do, just to simplify this a little bit, let's not get into like doing another tile generator or anything like that, or using another set of inputs. We're just going to simply take this guy, put it into a transform node, and blend that with the original result. So I'm kind of making like a duplicate of this whole thing. Now the reason I'm doing this is because now when they mix together with a max, so I'm adding both the results. If I click on the transform, if I kind of move it, you can see how I'm just shifting this around. And eventually, if I kind of zoom in and just nudge it in the right spot, actually you'll get that pretty much perfect. There we go. We've got it. We just double check the reference, but I'm pretty sure that is exactly what's going on. Yeah, that is very, very close. The only thing probably off with mine, I might have some very, very small thickness issues with some of those lines, and the petals are just a little bit too light. But the way we've kind of broken it up, that's going to be super easy, because I used that levels before. I could just darken that a tiny bit more to maybe exaggerate it. But there we go. So not too bad. Kind of interesting little trick here using the kind of the double pattern input on that tile generator. But there you have it. We've just completed pattern number 11.